Hey folks, welcome back to FreepCast. My name is Rob Murray. I'm your host, sort of. Always here with, well, not always, but usually here with Joe Spear, the Free Press managing editor. And Joe, when was the last time you covered a city council meeting?
Boy, it's been a while. I did cover a few of them back in the day, but obviously we had the big one this past week. I don't think I've seen that many people show up for a city council meeting in a long time. And,
yeah, it's kind of a reporter's dream.
Yeah.
To go to a meeting and have there be, actual drama happening.
There was drama. They had signs. They were carrying signs and speaking their mind. As we know, I don't know if I want to call it a rumble at City Hall, but people showed up to discuss the plan for more surveillance cameras in Mankato and AI technology that can track people more closely than ever before. And it was interesting because it was on the consent agenda, which means that, there's no discussion, usually no public comment. And they've talked about this issue for 3 or 4 different meetings, but we can't recall if there was ever like a public hearing on it. I don't think there needed to be. And so at the last minute, all of a sudden people got wind of it somehow and decided to show up in a pretty big number. And we got a couple of letters to the editor on the Friday, and they were all about this. So they asked if we could get them in, and we did. And some of those folks, I think, were the organizers or were at least at the meeting, the folks who had the letters. But main objections: too much surveillance, don't need it. Just say no to more surveillance, I think the sign said. And to give the context, we have about, from our article by Mark, we have about 500 and some cameras already in our city. And I think that we were adding 20 more high-tech ones, and ones that read license plates and technology that can track a person across the city. So a lot of stuff that they were hoping to get, and so people were there saying no, we don't want it. There was some confusion because at some point that several members of the council, except for Mike McLaughlin, walked out. And then afterward, as Mark reports, there was, just a informal conversation between the people and McLaughlin, I presume. But earlier, the council had voted to scale back the proposal, and I think we're not going to do yet the adopting the technology that can track people. And this is the big concern was with all these ICE raids and ICE now being prominent in our cities and communities, it would make it shareable to any law enforcement agency like ICE. So the worry is, again, some innocent people would be tracked. And as we know, there's been some no due process when people are thrown in jail. So it's got to be, it's really scary. Interesting. Like I say, I don't think I've seen this many people show up at a council meeting in a long, long time.
It's been, maybe for the chicken debate. Oh. There was a lot of people at the chicken thing. But in this case, I also think people just have a little bit of a problem with, some folks say if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about. But I also think just being watched all the time, I don't think people like that.
Yeah, it's
even if they're law-abiding and doing... Right. Not doing anything wrong. There's just something a little weird about knowing everywhere you go in this city, there's a camera on you.
Well, and I think people are struggling with why do we need it? Is our city running rampant with a lot of muggings and a lot of carjackings and a lot of people? We should watch people more because every minute something's going to happen, or every day. And I don't think you see that. And like St. Paul, I think, has 23 murders this year so far, and Minneapolis has more than that, I think, 40, and we have 2 or 3 shootings, murders.
Which is a lot for us.
Is a lot for us, yeah. So I don't know.
Most years we have 1 or 0.
Yeah. Proportionally, if people felt, do we really need this? And I think it's in the context of everything that's going on. Some of these, things that are clearly unlawful detainment by authorities. So I think maybe people just, and it was hard to figure out who the organizer was, but they were somewhat organized because they all had printed same kind of signs.
Yeah.
And banging them on the, making noise with them. And so that's what was hard to hear while the council was still in session. But they could have, it was on a consent agenda, so that I guess one of the councilors could have made a motion to take it off the consent agenda and then have public comment. They can do that anytime. And there's public comment period in every council meeting, I think, or there can be. Just, you know, like in North Cato, they've done that for a while. Just have anything to say, it's at the end of the meeting. Although I think the law is they don't have to have those, but they certainly can.
But they had to know this was an issue that was going to be, people are going to want to have their say, and a bunch of people showed up, and they, yeah, I'm not questioning the council, but I kind of am questioning the council. I think it would have been really easy for them just to look at the room, read the room, and say, we got some folks who want to have their voices heard.
Right.
This is our job as a council.
Yeah.
To listen to our community.
You're a
and
public servant. Your job is to answer to the public, to the voting public. I did think it was interesting that City Manager Susan Arntz said there is a process, a petition process that people can do if they want to just repeal a policy completely. She mentioned that. I think you have to have 15% of the voters or something like that, but I had no idea there was a petition process for stuff for Mankato City
I guess
Hall.
I didn't either.
Yeah, so kudos to her for mentioning it and telling the public you have this option.
It seems pretty hard to pull off, but
yeah, I mean, who knows? You know, if you can use your social media and, you know, your groups, you can reach a lot of people.
Yeah.
Change.org does that all the time, and it works to overturn some things. But, you know, interesting news.
Yeah, what else is going on?
Well, let's make sure we mention our sponsor here, too.
Oh, right.
The podcast you're watching is sponsored by Minnesota Valley Federal Credit Union, happily serving those who live, work, or do business in Blue Earth, Nicollet, LeSueur, Waseca, Brown, and Whatwan counties since 1934. So if you're getting something out of this, kudos to them and thanks to them, and give them a shout out. But speaking of murders, we did have another murder. Son killed his, is suspected of killing his father here in Mapleton, and police apprehended the suspect along Highway 22. He had gotten out of a car and was kind of just walking. So, hard to say on some of these things, but violence in small towns. And, of course, our new reporter, Leah Call, went down to Mapleton and talked to some people. And that's always kind of a hard thing for a new reporter or old reporters to do. You've done many of those.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you get people to talk to you?
I think I've said on this podcast before, it's one of my favorite things to do when I was covering the police was to, head out to a small town and try and cover a murder, because everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
And some people will talk to you, but most of them won't. So you just have to kind of figure it out for yourself and talk to as many people as you can.
It was a favorite thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it was my favorite thing. It's
not because of the content.
Yeah.
But because of the challenge that it would present. And, I remember going out to Springfield. There was a murder out there, and I didn't know anything but that somebody was dead. And going to the cafes and talking to people and having the BCA guy come up to me in the cafe and ask me what I knew.
Is that right? Oh, my God. Hey, what'd you hear? How about that?
Yeah. Old Bob Berg, who is now retired. But
oh, yeah.
I always said, if you see Bob Berg showing up in your town, somebody's dead.
Yeah. Did you ever come up against a really angry person? Like, who are you to ask this and
Certainly.
Get out of here?
Certainly,
It's none of your business.
Yeah, people are usually more irritated with us in that kind of a case than like the family of a victim when you go to talk to them.
Right, because you're just trying to tell people who their loved one was, what they were like, and that is sometimes easier. So, police news, crime news. Someone stole some merchandise from a local store and went 100 miles per hour in what I believe was a stolen Porsche through St. Peter, and they ended up very difficult to stop them. And so, when they start going over 100, the police, rightly so, just stop chasing, because then somebody's really going to get hurt. But eventually apprehended the person, I think, in Minnetonka or Eden Prairie. So eventually caught them. But kind of a bizarre case, just out of the blue, shoplifting and then driving a Porsche.
I mean, if you're going to steal a car, though, that's kind of...
True enough.
That's the one to steal.
And I think they found where the person was because the car had a, Apple technology finder.
One of those.
On it.
Yeah, cool.
So there you go. So yeah, a little excitement here and there. And I wanted to mention another good story we had Sunday on the Dakota elder, Glenn Washashina. And I probably messed that up, but it was a really great story because one of the two people who describe him as a first language Dakota, and one of two teachers of that language, and he was here at MSU. He died recently, so we did a nice story and a tribute to him, talking to his wife, Gwen Westerman, who is the poet laureate here. We have another really cool local thing here in Mankato of these two people having the only teacher of one of the only teachers of Dakota language at MSU, and these people just bring a richness to the culture and expose us to it. So,
yeah, Gwen was one of my favorite teachers at MSU. I had her for, I think, 3 classes.
Really? Oh, okay.
Fantastic.
What did she teach?
English.
Okay. Wow. Nice. And I do have a quote of the week from that story, and this is from Kent Whitworth, who's the CEO of the Minnesota Historical Society. He worked with Glenn a lot and said he was really significant in helping people understand the Dakota culture from a historical perspective, and his enthusiasm for the language. But what Kent said about Glenn, just because of who he was and how he worked to reinvigorate and preserve the language, there are so many next generation of Dakota people who were inspired by Glenn. So that's really cool.
That is cool.
A couple sports notes. East girls softball. I don't think we mentioned this, but they almost made it to the title game for would have been their 3rd championship in a row. They lost in the semifinals, took 3rd place, but a very hard-fought game, and the team that beat them won the championship.
Was that Rocori?
Rocori, yes.
Casey, were you at that game? No?
So good to see that. And now we have East boys baseball in the state tournament. They won their first game. Kind of an incredible game yesterday. I've never seen this before, and the coach said he'd never seen it either. 5 base hit bunts and 3 sacrifice bunts. 8 bunts in a game that win the game.
By East?
Yes.
They bunted that many times?
They bunted that many times. It was
strategy, man. Way to go.
It was kind of a strategy.
Way
they
to go.
were thinking it would help because it was wet and it was raining, and
nice.
they pulled it off. 7-2, 8-2, something like that. And now they're playing again as we speak right now today. So
East kicking butt in the spring sports.
They are. They're really doing well. Really doing well. But I think that kind of wraps up what I have. Anything on your plate, mind?
I don't think so. I mean, we can mention that the ever-popular Best of Mankato issue of Mankato Magazine is coming out in July. If you subscribe to the Free Press, it'll be in your paper. Usually
the last Saturday.
In June. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always a big issue, and I hear it's quite a bit bigger this year. So that's great. It was a successful business proposition this year again. And it's very popular.
Everybody wants to see that list. They want to see who won.
See that list.
We have some new faces in the list this year too, so that's nice.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Yeah. All right. Hit our sponsor one more time. Thanks to Minnesota Valley Federal Credit Union for sponsoring this podcast. They serve people who live, work, or do business in Blue Earth, Nicollet, LeSueur, Waseca, Brown, Whatwan County since 1934. So thanks for listening, everybody.